Hello again, welcome to the second episode of our best whiskies of 2021 so far. In the first episode, which you may have watched, if not, then we'll attach the link below here. But we covered the new whiskies that piqued our interest from January, February, and March. And in this one, we'll talk about a few of the whiskies that have done the same in April, May, and June. And we'll go through just in alphabetical order, and there's no other real criteria other than they've been released in the last 3 months. So I think probably without further ado, we should kick off. So as I said, we're going to go through in alphabetical order. And the first one that really really interesting, we always like to see whiskies from new distilleries. And this, in this case, is the first ever single malt from this distillery. And it's the Aberfells inaugural release. So with most of these, we've only got the samples that we get sent as like media or press samples. So to do our reviews, or we sometimes do allotment drams with them as well. But Aberfells, what can I tell you about that? It's the first distillery in North Wales for over 100 years, and everything here was distilled in 2018, and that's literally when it came on stream. So some of the very first single malt that they produced is in this first release, and it's an interesting mix. There's 3 different cask types at play, where the spirit's gone in and then been married together by Dr. Kirsty McCallum, who's the master blender for Aberfells. So you've got American Virgin Oak, you've got European Oak, Pedro Jimenez sherry casks, so these really sweet dessert type of sherry casks. And then you've got European Oak, quite unusual, orange wine casks. So don't really know too much about that. Never really had any whiskey from that. But this just created this sort of luscious, sweet, very aromatic single malt, which, it's 3 years old. So it does have that youthful quality, but, very, very impressive for first release. And, 2,000 bottles sold out on its first day of release. So, really can't wait to see what comes out from Aberfells in North Wales in the future. So there we are, Aberfells inaugural release. That's the first one. So the second one is the Ardbeg Scorch. This is the committee edition. So, Ardbeg is an old favourite of ours and would probably feature in most lists. I mean, pretty much impressed with whatever they do. This is the cask strength version, 51.7%. And this is released every year. They do a committee release for Ardbeg Day at the Islay Festival. Obviously this year, it was really virtual again because of all the COVID restrictions that were going on in the UK at the time. But that didn't stop it selling out, again very quickly, a bit like the Aberfells. All these committee releases of Ardbeg always sell out and always struggle to get them. So again, only the press sample here, no full bottle, unfortunately. But what can I tell you? This is it's called Scorch because it's been matured in heavily charred American oak casks, previously held bourbon. So basically the tale is there's a mythical dragon that maybe lives in one of the warehouses at Ardbeg on Islay, and he scorches the casks with his breath. And whether you believe that or not, we'll leave that up to you. But yeah, just lovely, peppery, punchy, powerful peatiness, everything you would expect from Ardbeg. So, really sort of juiced up with these heavily charred casks as well, very spicy. So yeah, very, very good as well. So Ardbeg Scorch, the committee edition. So the third one is actually 3 whiskies in one, and we're very, very fortunate to have received this, because this is the Brora Triptych. Now this is a set of whiskies that were basically put together to celebrate the rebirth of Brora, which just reopened. The first spirit came off the still for just over 38 years back in May. It closed in March 1983. No spirit has been produced there since until May just gone. So, they released this to showcase some of the, sort of oldest, finest casks, and there's really not many casks left, of the original Brora spirit. So it'd be very interesting to see how they actually, how the new spirit stacks up against the old, because most people have only ever tried the old spirit, of course. So here we have the triptych. So we've got the three bottlings there. So the full size bottles, the full set is £30,000 for the full set, and comes in like a sort of nice wooden casket. And you can only buy it as a set. You can't buy the individual ones. So just think of the, we've got 9 CL combined there. So that's going to be pretty healthy in terms of value for that. But yeah, what a treat. Took part also in the first filling of the cask, live from the distillery back in May, virtually, of course. But what can I tell you about these? There's 3 different ones. So you've got 1982. This is 38 years old and has been maturing in American oak for all of that time. You've then got a 1977. This has been in American oak and European oak. It's 43 years old, and this one is a little bit more peaty because Brora has this sort of Highland peatiness, which is quite soft, quite gentle. But here, in the sort of mid to late 1970s, Brora was actually producing heavily peated spirits. So this is from that era, 1977. And then the oldest one is 1972. So this is even older than me, believe it or not. And this is 48 years old, and it again has been in American oak and European oak casks. And this is actually the oldest bottling that Diageo have ever put out from Brora. And there's not much stock that's older than this from what they say. So such a real treat to take part in that. And this really, I know it's not a whiskey for everyone per se, but it is a whiskey for someone. So a real treat for us to take part in that with other sort of media people from around the world as well. So the Brora triptych. So next we go to a new distillery actually. So quite nice sort of contrast where we're sort of jumping around here. And it's the Cotswolds Hearts and Craft Pinot de Charente cask. And what this is the second release in the Heart and Crafts series that they're putting together. A set of limited editions that really celebrate the heart and the sort of the Heart and Crafts movement. The sort of basically sort of main protagonist of that was William Morris, who was from the Cotswolds, and he he's really the inspiration. So the packaging has all these sort of William Morris type designs sort of on it as well. Again, just the press sample, but what can I tell you about this? This has been fully matured in Pinot de Charente casks. Now, these are made of French oak, but didn't really know what Pinot de Charente was. Never really had it. Certainly never had a whiskey that's been matured in a cask of that type. So what it is, Pinot de Charente, is fresh grape juice. It's blended with cognac. It's made down near Bordeaux, near the Cognac region, and then matured in casks. So everything sort of marries together. Then, of course, they empty it out, they bottle that, and then here they've put this for the full maturation, the Cotswolds single malt, into there. So, yeah, another delicious, really sort of juicy, fruity, rounded, sort of very, very nice single malt. So, yeah, limited edition again. So, if you like the sound of that, I'd get your hands on it if possible. So, Cotswolds Heart and Crafts Pinot de Charente cask. So next we've got a full bottle actually. This is the Jura rum cask finish. And this is the third edition from the Isle of Jura distillery in their Cask Edition series. Starts life in American oak, ex-bourbon casks, and then, as the name suggests, has been finished in ex-rum casks, in this case from the Caribbean. And yeah, just a lovely, perfect. We're having a bit of a heat wave here in the UK at the moment, and just a perfect whiskey for this. It's got this summery, slightly tropical fruit notes, and also great value. £45 for the bottle. Comes in this 1 litre size as well. So that really is quite good value, and just, yeah, I love this luscious tropical fruit sort of notes, going with that slight sort of smoky background smokiness that you get with Jura. So yeah, it just works really well. So yeah, the Jura rum cask finish for our next one. So on the home straight now, I've just got 3 more to go, so bear with me. I hope you're still here. So the next one is Kilcoman Lockgorm 2021 edition. Now, Lockgorm was first released 7 or 8 years ago now, so we're a few editions down the track. It's an annual release. 2012 I think was the first time it was released, and it's named after the freshwater lock which sits just you drive past it to get to the distillery on that sort of western peninsula of Islay. So as with all of the Lockgorms, it's only been matured in sherry casks, and everything in here actually has been distilled in 2011 or 2012. So, some of the older, a lot of Kilcomans, they tend to be released on the younger side, and it does seem to suit that. But this is some of the older whiskey that they've actually put out so far. So, just, again, limited edition, but just 24 Oloroso sherry casks put together by Anthony Wills, who's the founder and master blender there. So yeah, another delicious example from Kilcoman. Kilcoman Lockgorm 2021 edition. So just 2 more to go. So the second to last one is the Macmira Brooks Whisky Deluxe. Now this is part of the Moment series. So this comes out once, twice a year, and always limited edition, so just under 2,000 bottles of this one. And this pays homage to the series is quite innovative actually. You get some very interesting things coming out. But this one pays homage to the classic Brooks whisky, which sits in the core range. It's about £45 a bottle. This one certainly isn't that. It's about 120 odd pounds a bottle, but it's exactly the same recipe and exactly the same cask types that are used in the same proportions, but older than the classic Brooks whisky. So everything in here is between 9 and 14 years old, and as I say, the mix of casks is the same. So the mix is actually, you've got bourbon casks, 2 different sizes, 100 and 200 litres. You've then got Oloroso sherry casks, and you've got some Swedish oak casks, which, Macmira are real protagonists of. That, they really, one of the few places using Swedish oak, and probably the most prominent place at that. So everything else is also, all of these casks have been matured in the Bodas mine, which is their very unique underground. It's an old iron ore mine, and it's basically like a cave, big cavern underground. You have to drive from the entrance about 2 or 3 minutes to actually get to this cavern where the iron ore was mined from, and it creates this very stable condition for the cask to mature, both in terms of temperature and humidity and so on. It doesn't really change, even if it's 40 degrees outside or minus 20, it doesn't change inside. So yeah, another lovely bottling, light, crisp, but a bit more depth than obviously the classic Brooks whisky. So yeah, Brooks Whisky Deluxe from Macmira, very nice. And then the final one is another real treat, and probably one of the most expensive samples we've ever received, and that's in what 13 and a half years of whisky blogging. And this is the Singleton of Dufton 54-year-old paragon of time. So this is the oldest ever bottling from the Singleton by Diageo, and it comes in this nice little box. But again, you know, a bit like the Brewers, you know, really real treat to take part in this. You know, again, we took part in a virtual launch online, and it was distilled in 1966. It's been in a European oak cask for all of that time, before it was then switched by Maureen Robinson, excuse me, by Maureen Robinson into a Pedro Jimenez sherry cask for a short finishing period, just to, you know, she thought that would accentuate the whiskey a little bit, you know, and that you've got to tread very carefully with whiskies that old. You know, really, you can't take any chances. So Maureen, expert in her field, and has done a really great job with this. So European oak for most of the time, and then finished for this short period in Pedro Jimenez sherry casks. And the full bottle of this was £29,000. So you can see this sample, which is what, 30 millilitres. This sample alone is worth over £1,200. So again, real treat, and just, you know, like the Brewers, there's just character in there that you just don't get with younger whiskies, and it's this careful management of the casks that really, you know, lifts and stops it becoming too, you know, you try some old whiskies, they can be very old, very woody, but this is, you know, just uplifting. It's got a vibrancy that, you know, beyond its years. So, you know, very, very skillful management of the cask, and, you know, as I say, a real treat to take part in that. So they are the 8 whiskies that we've chosen as our sort of our best whiskies of 2021 so far for April, May and June edition. And obviously we'll be back sort of later in the year once we've got the next 3 months out of the way. But just to recap, we'll go back through them. So to start with, we had the Aberfells inaugural release from North Wales. Then we had Ardbeg Scorch, the committee edition, you know, lovely limited cask strength edition from Ardbeg there. Then we had the Brewer Triptych, the real treat there. Then we had the Cotswolds Hearts and Craft Pinot de Chiron cask, you know, this lovely juicy English whiskey from the Cotswolds. Then we had the Jura rum cask, you know, again, perfect summery, you know, tropical sort of nature to the whiskey there, given by those Caribbean rum casks. Then we had the 100% sherry cask matured Lockgorm from Kilcoman, the 2021 edition. It's their annual Lockgorm release. Then we had the Macmira Brooks Whisky Deluxe, this sort of homage to the classic Brooks whisky, but a bit older. And then we had finally the paragon of time, Singleton of Dufton, 54 years old. So that's our roundup for the last 3 months. We hope to see you again in another 3 months. And yeah, let's hope for this great year of whiskey continues. Until then, bye-bye.